Welcome to the Persist series, Discovery's monthly conversation series to help women in engineering and tech build community and thrive in their careers. Today's episode is all about new opportunities to reach minorities and women in their early career. We'll talk about building new resources into underserved colleges to assist students' matriculation. We'll think creatively about opportunities to advance young professionals and facilitate their long-term success in engineering and tech. I can't wait for you to meet today's speaker, Briana Gamble. A civil engineer by trade, Brianna has enjoyed working on major transit and roadway projects in her own community and beyond to better serve Black and Brown people. Brianna currently works for Bentley Systems as a civil consultant in user success to bring new opportunities in engineering and tech to minority and women students across the US. I'm thrilled to introduce you to Briana Gamble.
Hello, my name is Briana Gamble. I am a civil engineering consultant for Bentley Systems. I graduated from Howard University in Washington, D.C., where I was also a member of the Lady Bison soccer team. The things that I enjoy most about not only my career, but my life is being a parent and a wife. I enjoy the support of my family and my friends. That support continues to motivate me and drive me for all things in my career and outside, just in my growth as a woman, as a minority, and as a parent. I truly enjoy what I do at Bentley Systems, being a part of our user success group. We facilitate trainings and work directly with users and engage with them on making their projects a success. And so how I got here started way back when I was in high school through a vocational program. I was able to do drafting, and that really opened my mind to the possibilities of engineering and then the software applications that you utilize. So I enjoyed my time at Howard University. Playing D1 soccer and being a civil engineer was a tough task. Part of the things that made me persist through and continue to persevere was not only the support of my teammates, but also the coaching staff and then the faculty there at Howard University. They were constantly encouraging me, creating great time management opportunities for me, which allowed me to be able to do both and excel at a higher level. Being a captain on the women's soccer team really gave me leadership experience. And in that experience, I've carried out through my career and currently now by spearheading Bentley Education's Project Focus. Project Focus stands for Fostering Opportunities for Colleges and Universities in STEM. And with our focus right now being on promoting and highlighting, supporting HBCUs. And so we've currently taken the program to Howard University and Southern University. In those capacities, we are working directly with the faculty and the students to integrate our applications into their course curriculums and allowing to give training to the professors and to the students. This will propel the students in their careers as they enter the workforce. They will have the opportunity to have already touched and worked on industry applications that they will utilize throughout their career. So it's a super exciting venture to be able to share this with not only my alma mater, but then with other HBCUs, which stands for Historically Black Colleges and Universities. While I was at Howard, I worked with NSBE and our ASCE, which stands for National Society of Black Engineers, and then American Society of Civil Engineering. Both of those organizations do a phenomenal job at reaching to the students at the universities and then helping them in career opportunities, expanding their platform, and just having a better understanding of what we do in the civil engineering industry. One of the goals that I've always had in mind is making sure that if someone opened a door for me, I turned around and opened up a hallway for someone else. I'm also a mother to 2 girls, and so it is paramount that I show them not only what I can do, but the possibilities are endless for them. And so a big driving factor and the things that I look forward to the most are sharing and telling the stories of what I'm working on in my work capacity and my personal capacity, and sharing it with them, helping opening their mind to all of the possibilities, not just in engineering, but anything that their heart desires or their mind can think of. I want to make sure that they know they have, the full support of me and their father, and a community of people that is really looking after their best interest. So what we do, is not just about working. You also have to continue your education. And so that is one of the things that I love about my job, is that when I work directly with users, I'm continuing to learn from them in the industry, and being able to support them has made me a better engineer. Some of the major projects that I was really excited to have a hand in are the Purple Line Metro, which is coming to the Washington, D.C. area. I was really excited to work on that project. I was only one of 2 women designers for the effort, and it was a very, very enriching experience. Being able to work on a project in an area in which I live and my family lives was valuable to me. And now seeing it in construction, I get to point out to my girls, hey, mommy worked on that. And so it's super exciting to be able to share these experiences with them. I also had the opportunity to work on a 2-way cycle track that is right behind Howard University near Washington Hospital Center. And so it's a first cycle track of its kind that's 2 ways, where it introduces a bike signal as well. And so I just loved working on that effort. I was able to work on it with fellow engineers, but one of them also being an alumni with me from Howard University. So working on projects like those really helped me expand my love for learning, doing different types of design. Roadway is not always just about how cars move, but multimodal transportation is very important. So you have to look at, pedestrians, bicyclists, and be able to make sure that everyone can travel the roadways safely. And so I get true joy out of being able to work on projects that benefit the community and enrich the lives of others around me. One of the things that I love to do in my personal time is to give back. I speak a lot with girl organizations, whether they're related to STEM directly or just the empowerment of young minority women. I myself is an African American. My daughters are Jamaican American. And so being able to also highlight their cultures and mine as well is something that truly excites me. I would love to be able to one day work on projects in Jamaica or the Caribbean or other places to also show them that we are not limited to just where we live. We can make an impact in our community and other communities, and then hopefully globally. And so with Project Focus, we are also excited to make sure that we are reaching as many students as we can throughout the country. We are starting and focusing on historically Black colleges and universities, not because they need our help, but we want to support their efforts. They are doing a phenomenal job at bringing more minorities into the STEM field, and we want to make sure that we can support them through our applications. And so Project Focus takes that a step further and makes sure that not just the students are enriched, but as well as the professors. We want to make sure that they feel supported and the faculty feel supported and have the chance to touch real world applications and then utilize that knowledge that they are gaining and experience to then in turn give it to their students. So one of the things that really propels me through my career is the support of my family. My grandfather was not an engineer by trade, but he was an engineer by design. So he worked in an engineering capacity once he returned from the Korean War. And so watching him and my father build things that needed to be built helped me realize that I could do it. I could go out there and get it done. And so it was one of the highlights of my life that he was able to come and watch me graduate from Howard University. At the same time, my sister was receiving her master's degree as well from Howard University. So it was truly a family affair. And that is what continues to motivate me, knowing that I am supporting and building on the legacy of our family is extremely exciting. I just really like to thank my parents for all the work that they put in with me. They fully supported me through high school and through college, and even now as I matriculate through my career. That support has really meant a lot to me. When I was in high school, I had the opportunity to do a program for engineering that helped expose me to all of the facets of engineering, whether it's mechanical, civil, environmental, chemical, different options out there. And my mother was truly dedicated to making sure that I could get there and that I enjoyed what I was learning. So thank you to my mom and my dad for always supporting my efforts, and it's much appreciated. So support can come in many different forms and fashion. There's definitely a lot of support within the work capacity that I do at Bentley Systems. I lean on the mentors that I have there, but the support of my family, the faculty at my alma mater is paramount. So that support looks a little different. So it doesn't always have to be focused on work conversations. Sometimes it's the mental fortitude that I'm lacking today, and they really help build you up and build me up to go out there and continue to conquer. I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana, and then I came to Howard University in Washington, D.C., but I moved out and moved to Maryland. And so navigating a new space can be exciting, but also overwhelming. Take it piece by piece. Part of that is if you need to reach out to a new network, you can start small. So I try and find organizations that I was already a part of that are national organizations and see if there's a new local chapter that I can be a part of. I also reach out to mentors on LinkedIn. So you can kind of look at your LinkedIn profile, and if they're in your area or in your field, don't be afraid to reach out to them. I am strong in my faith. Right. So I also reach out and try and find a new church home to those that are reaching out, whatever your faith may be. It's exciting to, find a new place, and those support systems are really a good way to enter into the community. And then lastly, I visit my local library. I got a library card and I would go and explore, and you never know who you'll meet at the library or the things that you will venture into. When I first graduated college, I would visit the local library to get the books that I like, but I also noticed that there were several students that would come in and were struggling with math and science. And so me being an engineer, I then extended some tutoring services to them. And then again, I facilitated those at the local library and made good acquaintances with the librarians there and even some of the school administrators that recognized what I was doing. So I think that part of what you can do is kind of step outside of your box and enter into a new place. It may seem challenging, but find that mental fortitude, that heart, because everything you're doing is genuine, and you will receive what you put out. So to those that are looking for inspiration, sometimes it comes in different forms and fashion. Every day is not always peppy and exciting, but then seeing my kids come home and be excited about something that they learned helps remind me that it's the little things that matter. My daughter is 4, and so she's learning to read, and being able to share in her excitement when she read an entire sentence on her own helped remind me that you have to take baby steps and you have to give yourself grace. She had been working at that book and that sentence for a very long time, and then you have to also celebrate your wins. So she completed that action, and instead of continuing on, we stopped and we had a dance party, making sure you give yourself grace and you celebrate even the small victories will make a big, big impact on your mental fortitude to continue as you are working on whatever the projects may be. So one of the things that I love to do is go back and speak to young girls, women, and even students. And when I speak to them, I like to spend time on how you have to have a good work-life balance and making sure that you are working through what works best for you. I know school and sometimes sets a pace for the way things should be delivered as well as work. We all have our deliverables and assignments, but making sure that you are pacing yourself and don't overwork yourself. Take time to celebrate your wins, but also put your feet up, take a break. That's really important to just find an escape. I love to craft. So some of the stuff that I do is making shirts and signs and cards for my family. Those just give me a lot of joy, but it's also a task that kind of takes me away from being a mom and being an engineer and being a partner and a wife. You really have to find out what makes you happy. And I'm really excited about where I am in life because I'm realizing that happiness comes from within. And if I exude happiness, it will then in kind return back to me. So I lead with love and kindness and generosity, and being genuine also very much helps that effort. If I go into something, I'm going to put my heart, my mind, and my soul into it and make sure that those know that while I'm here, you have my attention, you have my respect, and I just ask for that in return. Being able to learn from others that don't look like me, don't talk like me, aren't from where I'm from, I think helps build a better character for myself. And then I can then share those experiences with my colleagues and with others. Because again, it's about being compassionate. It's about making sure that you are respecting yourself, but respecting others. So the civil engineering industry is a male-dominated field. And so most of my work that I have been doing has been very limited with other women and shared experiences. But I know that the industry is changing. And so while I was only one of two women, they made sure our voices were heard. We were not afraid to speak up in meetings and to ask questions. And then it was respected. And so I think, it's not always easy entering into spaces where you are an outlier. And then it also feels like a lot of weight on your shoulders that you're carrying when you walk into these rooms. But I was confident in not only my knowledge of what I knew, but I was also confident in the job that I was hired to do and execute. And so it took, sometimes every morning a little bit of resiliency and perseverance to kind of get up and know I was going in there and doing the job. But then I was like, who better but me? Right? My faith again put me in a place that said, I was built for this. I can do this. I will open up this door. And for the next person, it will be a hallway. It isn't always easy working in these spaces, but it's the confidence of what you've done. Everything you've done up until this point will get you through that. During my time on the Purple Line, I was actually pregnant with my youngest daughter. And so there was a certain, hesitation being pregnant in the workplace, as well as being one of two women. And so my colleagues were very understanding. Civil engineering has a lot of site work where you go out and you have to examine your site. My colleagues were very respectful of the fact that I was pregnant. So we would, take what would be a day's worth of activities and maybe spread it over 2 or 3 days. We always traveled in a group, so I never had to do all of the work on my own. Now, this did not make me feel any less of my contribution, but it actually made me feel very respected because they understood that I still had a contribution to give to the team. Our bodies take on a lot of work when we have to carry children. So to be able to know that I was going into a workplace where I was respected while being pregnant was very, very encouraging. My original thought process when I, entered into college and knew I wanted to be a civil engineer, I had very high expectations of myself. I'm going to do this and this and this. And as I continued to grow, I realized that it wasn't always checking a box more so than being proud of myself. I have to give myself grace for where I am in this moment and make sure that I can continue to propel myself forward at a pace that works for me. So thriving is a self-regulation, not a 5-year goal plan, but a 1 or 2 week plan to say, hey, in this week, I want to get these things done, but I also want to make sure I'm balancing time with my kids, making sure that my husband in his job feel supported and the things that he does, and also communicating. So I always thought thriving meant awards and money and fame or stardom, but I came back to realize that thriving is really an internal drive, right there with confidence and perseverance. Thriving is you got up today and you did what you set out to do, you're thriving. And as long as you get up tomorrow and have even better outlook than you did today, you will continue to march forward. And thriving is the path that you blaze for yourself.
I'm excited to get to know Brianna a bit better during our live Q&A session, so find that Q&A button on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen and get ready with your questions. See you soon.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the March session of the Persist series, Find Your Drive to Thrive. I'm Carol Smith, your Q&A moderator. I'm an electrical engineer at UL, a global science, safety, security, and sustainability company located just outside of Chicago, Illinois. And with me today are our featured speaker, Briana Gamble, and also Valari Rendon. And why don't you reintroduce yourself for us, Brianna, please?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today and Discovery for this opportunity. My name is Briana Gamble. I reside in Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C., and I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Brianna. And Valari.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today. I'm excited as well to be here. And I'm really, thrilled to be able to share my story here with you today. I'm with Bentley Systems. I'm a civil engineer by trade. I've been with Bentley since 2004. We're a software company. And I work in our user success team, helping people get to know and understand our software and use it for their projects. And I'm based out of Seattle, Washington.
All right, thank you, ladies. We're going to get started with the questions. This one, we're going to start with you, Brianna. You mentioned a lot about doors being opened for you. Can you expand on that and give us an example of something very specific where someone opened a door for you and then you turned around and opened and made a hallway for others?
Well, I'll start with Valari. I mean, that's how I got to Bentley Systems. When I came and spoke with her, it was kind of random. It was related to the actual application, and I was picking her brain and, hey, can you do this and that within the application itself? And Valari saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. And she said, hey, you're really experienced with our applications. Have you ever thought of a career at Bentley? And I was like, well, no, I don't even know where your offices are. I was just picking your brain with my questions. And she said, well, listen, take a look at our website. I think you would be great to be on our team. This is what we do. And I took that opportunity and I ran with it. And here I am. But then I had the ability to turn around and open a hallway because of Valari's efforts to recruit at HBCUs. Started not only our internship program for user success and the way that we seek out minority engineers for internships. And we have hired and then gone on to hire those individuals either as part-time or full-time, and then even project focus. We did not have a employee resource group prior to me getting to Bentley, and part of Valari's efforts and the efforts of a lot of my Bentley colleagues, we started an idea resource group for employees, which has allowed us to find a common space and to speak freely and for it to be safe for not just African Americans, so people of color in the United States, but women at Bentley, and people with disabilities are also being supported. And so that conversation, I think like 3 years ago next month, has changed my life and kind of propelled me to drive me to make sure that everything I'm doing is not just in lockstep with engineering or promoting myself, but making sure that I do look back and see how we can continue to blaze the trail for others. So
Right.
thank you so much, Valari.
And
Absolutely.
Valari, do you have a story about someone? I mean, why are you someone who's opening doors? Were there others that demonstrated that way of being to you?
Yeah, I think where I started, one of my first like real jobs, actually right out of high school, was at Intrenco Engineers, and I really didn't know anything, right? I was just, I had taken a few CAD drafting classes in high school. They took a chance on me, and gave me an opportunity. I had a summer internship, and I talked my way into a full-time job somehow. I was very, very shy at the time. And a lot of people are kind of surprised to hear that, because I pretty much talk for a living, right? We're user success. We work with people. We're literally talking all the time. We're out there, we're public speaking. But like internally, I'm an introvert, right? I get most of my energy when I'm alone and I need to recharge. Doesn't mean I'm unfriendly or unsociable. It just means, I need time to recharge because I burn myself out when I'm around a lot of people. But anyway, it took me a while to come out of my shell. And so I was so shy, and my first job there at Intrenco Engineers it was excruciating sometimes coming into the office every day and having people ask me questions. And there was just so much I didn't know. And I intimidated myself, you know what I mean? And I felt like someone mentioned imposter syndrome in the chat. Was like, I was so overwhelmed by how much I didn't know. It was just like, trying to beat back that little voice inside my head that says, you can't do this, you're gonna fail, you're terrible, hope nobody finds out, you know what I mean? But what really that helped me was this woman that pretty much took me under her wing, and I'm grateful to her because she changed my career. She changed my life. Her name was Tren Trong, and she was a firecracker, very small in stature, but wow, she had a big personality, and she saw something in me, and that I didn't know at the time. And I just mustered up the courage to ask her, is there some way I can help on your project? I kind of asked her, what are you doing? That sort of thing. And she says, well, I'm using inroads. And I was like, can I help? And then she kind of started, giving me tasks to do on her project. And then she said one day, that this is what really changed my life. She said one day, she's like, if you have a question, it's okay to ask. It's okay to not know things. That's why you're here. You're here to learn. And then she says, I think you should probably take some assertiveness training questions, or training classes, right? And I said, I hadn't really thought about that, because like I said, I was almost felt like I was frozen, like I couldn't, too afraid to speak out and stand up for myself, right? And taking that assertiveness training class, I think it just changed my life, because I learned that class that, it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to stand up for yourself. It's okay being a woman and being a minority. You're going to be the outlier in a lot of situations, especially, at a technical firm or at an engineering firm like I was. So you have to put yourself out there. And in a lot of cases, you have to be 10 times better than the best person, and there's going to be times that you may be overlooked, but you have to put yourself out there and learn to be assertive and to exude confidence and be comfortable in your own skin. So and she helped me to get over my shyness. And it was a matter of just a few months. People would come to me and go, Valari, you changed. What happened? And it was that class and just the encouragement from this one person. And I'll never forget it. and so now when I see something in somebody, I see myself as a coach. Being a leader or being a manager isn't, to me, isn't being authoritarian and telling people what to do. It's being a coach, right? And helping people become better versions of themselves, right? And so that's the philosophy I live by, and that's the philosophy I try to instill in the folks that are on my team. Is that we're just trying to be better versions of ourselves and helping others and uplifting and inspiring them. So I'm trying to give back as well in my career, just the way, exactly the way that Trend saw something in me and inspired me.
Thank you for that. Changed your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's see what else we have. All right, here's the next question. Should women engineers of color pursue graduate level education to make themselves more competitive in the male dominated industry? Either of you can answer that question.
Oh, wow. It really is a personal decision. And so in civil engineering, a lot of what we do in terms of graduate school is on the academia side with research. And so for me personally, I thought about going back to grad school, but where you are in the industry and trying to matriculate through your career, it's actually better to look at certification programs, post graduate degree certifications, or even studying for our professional engineering exam. And things of that nature. So it is a personal choice whether to choose grad school. I wouldn't frown upon it. We would love to see as many women be as educated as possible, but just make sure it's in line with the trajectory of what you're hoping your career will look like. I don't think that women should pad the stats, right? So we should not have to go accumulate 4 degrees just to be comparable, or just to sit at a table, or just to get the interview where somebody else, to deem us worthy or quality enough for the position. So I'm a person that lives by experience. I've gone through, whether it's being a soccer player, engineer, or mom, or life, some of those things you could read books about, but some of the stuff you just kind of have to experience. So I tell them, figure out what works best for you, but I would really hone in on what experiences have you gained and what experience will you gain from going to graduate school and getting a post-secondary degree.
Any thoughts on that, Valari?
Carol, would you mind just repeating the question?
Yeah, should women engineers of color pursue a graduate level degree to make themselves more competitive in the male dominated career field?
Yeah, I would agree with Brianna. I think it's a personal choice. I don't think it all depends on the reasons why are really important, right? I don't think necessarily if it were me, I wouldn't choose to get a postgraduate degree and thinking that I have to have that to be competitive or to be comparable. I think that your success is shown, and what you're able to do and compete with others is shown through your work, right? So if you're results driven, and you produce and you can show your work, I think that speaks more, and that's way more valuable than a degree, in my opinion.
A degree. All right. Yeah, that makes me think back to years ago, 5 or 6, there was a sensors conference locally, and they were having women. There was going to be a women in sensors panel, and they wanted me to moderate, and they asked for my bio and my photo. And all these other women were PhDs, or they were directors or manager of this or global senior director. And I looked at my title and then my degree. It's like, oh, Carol Smith, BSEE, market surveillance engineer. Doesn't sound nearly as impressive. And my first thought was, wow, it would be really nice if I did have a MBA or a PhD or something like that. But I had the experience, I had the knowledge. I didn't feel less valuable than any of these other women, but those biographies were very impressive. But what you were saying about why are you doing it? Are you doing it to impress someone else, or what's the reason, and how much do you even like going to school? I can't see going back for an advanced engineering degree, MBA maybe, but if there were people that I enjoyed being around and the material, but just to have the degree maybe would not be the best reason. If your job required it, then of course, why not, right? So,
Or if they sponsored it, right? So we're in the
yes,
day and age where everything ain't free and it definitely ain't cheap. So if it's in
right.
line with what your career goals are and an employer will compensate or help, fund that education, then by all means take advantage of it. But it has to make sense.
Yeah. And sometimes your unique position, there's particular skills you need to do it better or to represent your company well. And that would of course make sense.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So you're both civil engineers. I'd like to hear what drew you into that field. And we heard a little bit from you, Brianna, about your dad and your grandfather, but what was why civil engineering specifically for each of you? And we'll start with you, Valari.
Okay, yeah. So like I was saying earlier when we chatted earlier, I love just tell this story because it cracks me up because it wasn't something that I decided to strive for and plan and everything. I actually kind of fell into this career by accident. And it literally just started with a crush on a boy. So, and I was in high school and I was a junior, I believe. It was my junior year in high school. And so for junior year, and this was the years before Running Start. So what they had though is they had a vocational technical program that partnered with the high school, which I think was great. And that changed my life, right? Because if it weren't for that opportunity, obviously I wouldn't be here today, a civil engineer in that capacity. So, so I was in high school and I was thinking about, taking classes at the vocational technical college and you'd get extra credit. And so I love to eat. I love, I'm a food geek. So I still am. And so I was thinking about taking culinary arts, right? But I wasn't thinking about a career or anything like that. I was like, hey, I love to eat. I'm going to take culinary arts. And that was my only thought. And so, but I was sitting in my calculus class and the boy next to me that I had a crush on, I found out we were just chatting one day and I said, hey, are you going to go to OSC this year? And he's like, yeah. And I said, well, what are you going to take? He's like, I'm taking computer aided design and drafting. I had no idea what that was. But then he said, what are you taking? And instantly and I rarely think off the cuff this way, but I just said, yeah, I'm taking that too. So I was like, you're there, I'm going to be there. You know what I mean? And so, so we get there, I sign up for the class. It's the first day I walk in and my jaw dropped because I'm looking around and again, it was one of those moments where like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Right. I'm looking around at the technical drawings on the wall. I'm looking at the computers. I'm looking at the drafting tables and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. So I'm sitting there and the instructor's talking about AutoCAD. He's like, hey, this is AutoCAD. It was like AutoCAD 11, I think at the time it was DOS. Pull it up. This is what we do, etc. And then, during a break, I kind of get up and I get up and I walk over to him and I said, and I fully expected him to say, okay, we'll put you in another class. So I got up and I said, I don't think this is for me. I don't think I can do this. And to my surprise, he looked at me and I didn't have an answer for this, right? So, because I wasn't expecting the way he responded, right? So I said, hey, I think I want to transfer to another class. I don't think this is for me. And he said, you can do this, go sit down. And I was like, okay. I looked at my feet and I shuffled over back to my seat and I sat down and, the rest is history. I found out I really enjoyed it, especially when we did like the 3D modeling, and at the time I was just like, this is pretty cool. And then the other thing, which is really funny, is that, how kids don't often clue in as to what their parents actually do for a living. I was one of those kids. I didn't know my dad was an engineer. right? So I came home and I told him what class I was taking. He's like, wait, you're taking CAD? I said, yes. He's like, that's what I do. He's like, I'm an engineer. I was like, oh yeah, well, I knew you, because at the time he worked for Washington Natural Gas, which is now Puget Sound Energy. And I knew he had something to do with like gas lines and stuff like that, but I didn't clue in that he was an engineer and he used the program we were using. And I was like, oh, that's why. And then I was like, yeah, I remember like visiting him and seeing the drafting table, but I just didn't make the connection, so that was inspiring too, like finally realizing, making the connection, that's what he did, and going, oh, okay, I can be that too, so that's what drew me into the field. And I had an internship at Intranco Engineers that summer after graduating from high school. They were a civil engineering firm. I did a small kind of job shadowing opportunity at ABAM Engineers during high school. So that's what kind of drew me into the civil engineering aspect of, the engineering field in general.
Okay, all right, thank you. And
Yep.
Brianna?
Yeah, so I explained a little bit in the video. My grandfather, he loved to do things with his hands, as well as my father. He attended an aviation high school, and so that allowed him to want to work on things, to come home, and we didn't need the handyman, we didn't need to call the plumber. Between my dad and my grandfather, we would figure it out. And so, fortunately, but unfortunately, my dad didn't have any sons. So the next best thing was he had to teach somebody. So he's fixing a toilet or fixing a fence or doing these different things. And here, little old Brianna's like, well, what are you doing? What are you up to? Can I help? Can I do this? What's this tool for? And the inquisitive nature and their willingness to not only show me, but to share with me, cultivated that. And then I spoke to my soccer coach growing up, one of my best friend's dad. He was the civil engineer, and then the vocational program that my mother introduced me to that showed all the different engineering. All of that kind of shook it up into a snow globe and got me graduating with a civil engineering degree. But upon graduation, I told my parents I didn't think that's what I wanted to do. And I was just going to work at a restaurant for a couple of more months until I figured it out. And my dad and my mother both encouraged me to say, listen, you spent all this time getting this degree. You did all of this in high school. Give it a try. Give it a try. Go out and get a job. And then if you really don't like it, you can go back to grad school. You can, go back to the restaurant industry, whatever those options are, but give it a try. And so I gave it a gander, and here we are all these years later. So kudos to the people that continue to push you, even when you don't know that that's the push you need. So
I have to ask you this. Why in the world did you think you didn't want to go into it after you earned your degree?
Well, two reasons. If you notice right now, the way the industry works is we learn a lot of academia in school, but civil engineering doesn't really teach you the actual execution. So I didn't feel like I knew much, right? I had no idea where I wanted to go. And I didn't even know how to begin to search for a job, right? I knew civil engineering, but there was all these facets. So should I type in my focus, geotechnical, or, environmental? How will I, quantify what I know into actually turning into experience? So some of it was just, I was a little scared. I was a little scared to really go test the waters and to figure it out. So I thank them for pushing me to try it. And, there's a little bit more financial freedom that comes with having a 9-to-5 job than being in the service industry. And so part of that, too, was the financial component that my parents encouraged me to have financial stability, to look at these different things, to do investments. And, in order to do some of that, I needed a little bit more salary. So they told me I needed to give it a try.
They sound like very wonderful and patient parents. I don't know that I would have reacted that calmly after paying tuition.
I didn't say it was calm now, no, but they're extremely patient, and they love me wholeheartedly. And I think that really helps me understand that the decisions and the things that they're telling me aren't rooted in malice or rooted in discontent. They're really coming from a place of, you can do this. As I said in the video, you don't wake up one day feeling confident to say I'm built for this. But my parents, in reminding me where I came from, what I do it for, my sister, my husband, my kids, helps to remind you that, you can do this. You are built for this. And after college, I wasn't sure, but leaning on them a little bit at the time definitely helped me.
Yeah, and we can never hear that too often. You can do this, you got this. And engineering, even within the disciplines, it's so multifaceted. You could be an electrical engineer and be, write standards or design or test. There's just, it's endless. And I don't think well, I shouldn't say that. It sounds like maybe what the program you're doing at Howard University, it kind of helps students understand what the academics, how that translates into the real world, practically speaking. But that's something that I graduating in electrical, I didn't have any idea. I knew what some of the options were and what some of the companies were, but I really, truly didn't understand what do you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, I agree. And then even now, some of my best friends are civil engineers, and we don't even do the same thing. They've done, and one's worked with water, the other one's done and gone on to do like project management. So just the facets, as you mentioned, are just so deep that my parents told me the only thing you got to do is you got to get in the pool. You got to get in there, and then you got to start playing and figure out what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what's next. How can we encourage our employers to look outside their traditional colleges for recruitment and support? What are some suggestions for that?
Oh, wow. The first thing that I would say is go where your employees are from, right? So going to Howard University wasn't anything different for me because I went there, right? So use your alumni networks, use what employees you have and find out where they went. I'm probably the biggest mouthpiece for Howard outside of Howard when you talk to me if you didn't go to Howard, right? Because I will tell you everything I liked about it. I will tell you who to talk to, where to go, what to see. And I imagine that most alumni will do that for their institutions. So I think the first is use your employees as a resource to figure out where you should go, right? They are an example of what comes from there. And then the second is you do have to step outside of your comfort zone. It is a holistic effort within a company to create these pipelines. Valari and I don't work independent or in a bubble. We work with the HR team that does an excellent job and the recruitment team that does an excellent job. And then we work with just other managers that speak out for what they're looking for. It takes internal people speaking up. The HR may not know that Valari's team had, she was the only woman at the time, right? Or that, they may not be able to look and ascertain some of that information because they're just looking at the organization on an org chart or on paper. So really look at the employees as a resource and utilize them, and search out. HBCUs are not new to the community. A lot of them have been around for a very, very long time, and they're producing brilliant minds in all kinds of industries. So I think taking a good hard look at what is already being done and making sure you are targeting your approach to reaching those people. What we're doing with Project Focus isn't going and reinventing the wheel. We're not creating HBCUs. We're not creating these minority networks. They exist, and we are trying our best to tap into them, support them, highlight them, and really encourage them to elevate on this higher platform. So I think that you're starting with your employees, reaching outside of your comfort zone, and then really charting a course to what you want that to look like. Is it diversity metrics? Is it, on race relations, or is it minority women, more women? What is it that you're looking for? And then figure out how to chart those courses. Because for as many HBCUs as I could name, there are probably smaller women's colleges doing wonderful things as well that don't get the same amount of attention. So I think it's a concerted effort. It has to be a holistic approach, and it's going to take a team of people and being genuine with the initiative.
Yeah, I think I want to elaborate on what Brianna said, because I like what you said about it being a holistic approach. It's got to have support at all levels in the organization, and that's key. If it starts from the colleagues and people a grassroots, but if executive leadership is not helping to sponsor this, then it tends to just die on the vine, right? And it can be really overwhelming. I'm a testament to that. I've been, trying to find my way and kind of figure out how do we increase the diversity for years, right? It didn't just start last year when we started IDEA and Project Focus and everything. And none of this really got off the ground until leadership took a look at it and really, and it was pushed from the bottom up, right? It was the folks, people of color as an organization that says, hey, we need to do better. And then leadership decided to say, yes, okay, we can do this, we can sponsor this. But until that happened, we really weren't making much headway with it. So that, to my point, I think it needs to be not only, driven from the colleague level, but also from the executive and leadership level. And it's a decades long effort. It's not something that, you can just do in one and done and like, okay, great, we're more diverse. And I mean, it's not easy, but we do it. One of those reasons, like JFK said, not because it's easy, because it's hard, but it's well worth it. And it's very, fulfilling and enjoyable when you see that change is happening and that you're able to make a difference.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right. Brianna mentioned earlier that being present with people, you feel giving them your attention, and you like to give them your attention and your respect and be fully present. And have you ever had situations where it's not reciprocated? And if so, how have you dealt with that? What's your approach?
I think we've all been in situations where it's not reciprocated, whether it's personal or professional. And it isn't always easy. I think reflection is the first part. Don't ever make rash decisions, right? So don't ever make anything in haste. I think, being a minority and being a woman, we deal with all different types of microaggressions. And sometimes you also have to look at the source, right? Sometimes people aren't knowingly doing things in malice. And so I have to kind of gauge, where and what and how I think it was rooted from. Mm-hmm. And the same grace I extend myself, sometimes I have to extend others. Maybe it does stay just a, work relationship. There have been other times where I haven't had the best relationship and there's still a job to be done. Still things need to get accomplished. And, maybe that's cutting out the small talk. So I get to meetings, it starts at 2:00. I'm here at 2:01 instead of 1:57, right? 1:57 leaves a little bit of room for that sometimes unpleasant talk. And during the pandemic, it, sometimes was about the vaccine when it first came out. And sometimes those kind of conversations, while harmless in nature to some, may cause, discontent with others. So to remove myself from that, I show up when it's meeting time, maybe not just a few minutes before, where we get into that open-ended dialogue. So sometimes you have to learn how to protect yourself. You can't really control what others do, how they act, how they behave, or what they choose to do to you. But the way that you choose to correspond and interact with them is your choice. And so I limit it to work-related stuff. If it's a work call, maybe you email me versus always picking up the phone and chatting with me, to make sure things are on paper per se versus the ambiguity that can come with a phone call. So I think it's extending other people grace, because we're all still, in this new space, in this medium where we are learning to respect and to open up the conversation, but sometimes we don't always open it up in the most pleasant way for all. So I think protecting your peace, learning what that means for you, putting up boundaries. I'm, young, but I'm still learning what that means to set up boundaries, whether that is in the workplace, whether it's with colleagues, friends, or even with my kids. So learning to put up your boundaries and respecting those and extending yourself and the other's grace. But you gotta protect your peace. but at no means do you let ignorance slide. So if somebody has said something, there are, HRs and places for you to express your grievances, and not everything can be swept under the rug. So if something has happened to you, you have the right to speak up, and so you should. But if you can just protect yourself from it happening again, I would choose to do that as well. But by no means should you ever suffer in silence. So if you're in a situation or in a place where you feel the behavior is either repetitive or unwelcomed or unwarranted, please speak up. That's the first thing with protecting your peace, is making sure others know what you've experienced. No one should suffer in silence.
Okay. All right. Wow, we're almost out of time. I have one last question, and then I'm going to ask each of you to leave us with a piece of advice before we end our session today. So the last question is, what do you do to feel empowered or strengthen your resolve when you do have a moment where your confidence kind of drops and it's lacking a bit? What's your self-talk or routine that you use?
Oh, Laurie, are you speaking?
Laurie, you're muted if you're ready to speak.
Well, I was actually thinking because let's see, that's interesting. I think honestly, with what I do, and I mean everybody probably has their own methods, but it helps for me if I take a minute and just clear my mind, because I tend to be a bit obsessive, right? And so if I know that if I'm like hyper focused on something, right, and I know that and it could be something that I focused on, something that I said like, I don't know, even like a year ago, then I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, and I'm beating myself up about it, right? And like to just try to get my head out of that, I have to I'm really just find something that I find enjoyable, that I can do in the moment. I mean, like, you know what, if I'm not in a meeting or something, I can get up, I can go outside, take a walk, just do something that I find pleasure in, practice my guitar, and just work on a song, even if it's just like 10 or 15 minutes, and that clears my head, and I'm focused in the moment on something completely different that has nothing to do with work or what I said or what this other person said. And it seems trivial, but it really helps. That's what helps me.
Yeah, so I am a person of scheduling and consistency. So part of the way that keeps me grounded is I talk to my sister every day. I know that sounds really weird, but she calls me the same time every day on her way home from work. And so I know that most of the time I can pick up the phone and I can call her, and she will take me away from whatever it is we're talking about. She can make jokes on me. She can show me things. And that, normacy, like staying normal, staying humble, staying true to who I am, is how I kind of get through things. I'm not always perfect. Sometimes I raise my voice in anger. Maybe I spent too much money when I went shopping, but I definitely keep myself humble. Like I know I'm normal, I'm human. And so, I talk to somebody that makes me feel that way, that truly knows me for my best human nature, and she sets me on the good foot, and she's not afraid to tell me when I'm wrong. I don't need a sounding board that just smiles back at me, right? You need a sounding board that'll help you correct your issues and put your best foot forward. So whether it's her or my family, my grandmothers, or, my mom, they will give it to you straight, no chaser. And I think that is extremely helpful when figuring out where my resolve comes from, but then also understanding that, again, I'm built for this. So yes, this may have deterred me. Yes, this may have swayed me, but it's not going to get me off the path that myself, my family, and God has put me on.
Yeah, finding those trusted sources, I've seen in the chat, that's incredible. And I want to elaborate on what Brianna said as well, is finding the helpers. I think it was Mr. Rogers who said that, and seeking out and having those mentors that even in your organization or even outside your organization. And my husband is my best friend, and so sometimes I'm just like, yeah, I need to talk to you about something, and I just need to vent a little bit. Do you mind? And he'll listen, and same thing, vice versa. So, or, one of my mentors, I may just, their door is always open. And as a mentor myself, my door is always open. I'm here to just listen in most cases. And I know that I can go to them, and the folks that I mentor, I know that they can come to me and say, hey, do you have a minute? Just want to run something by you. I'm just feeling this way. And I'm just like, yeah, I'll just listen, and if I'm able to give my advice or, and sometimes that's all they need. They just need someone to just sit and listen, or like Brianna said, distract you and, get your mind off of whatever it is that's bothering you for a minute.
Yeah, I think that's been a consistent theme throughout the Persist series and Global Marathon over the years, that having someone who speaks truth back into you and gets you in that good place. So thank you both very much. It was a wonderful session. That's all the time we have. I'd like to invite everyone back for our next session is going to be April 20th. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and happy International Women's History Month. Bye now.
Thank you so much, Discovery. Thank you so much, Carol, Valari, Kristen, Jean Marie, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, ladies.
This is great.